So let me start with a question. When you think of the most powerful, richest company in history, what comes to mind? Maybe a tech giant from today? Well, I want you to put that aside for a moment, because the real answer might surprise you. And just to give you an idea of the scale we're talking about, at its peak, this one company was worth more than Apple, Amazon, and Google are today, combined. It's a level of wealth and power that is almost impossible to wrap your head around. The company we're talking about is the Verenigde Oost-Indische Company, or VOC. You might know it as the Dutch East India Company. And it wasn't just a company, it was the world's first true megacorporation. That's what we're breaking down today. We're gonna cover its entire story. First, we'll look at the mad dash for spices that set the stage. Then, we'll see how this corporate giant was born. We'll explore the massive trading empire it built, uncover the brutal dark side of its profits, and finally, watch its spectacular fall and see what it left behind. Okay, so let's set the scene. It's the late 1500s. Europe is absolutely obsessed with spices. Pepper, cloves, nutmeg. And this wasn't just for taste. These things were essential for preserving food. This trade was insanely profitable. But there was one big problem. Portugal had a near total lock on it.
But then a perfect storm started brewing that gave the Dutch an opening. For one, Portugal just couldn't ship enough spices to keep up with demand. At the same time, the Dutch were at war with Spain, and Spain had just taken over Portugal. Suddenly, all of Portugal's trade routes were fair game. So Dutch merchants started sending their own ships out, but it was total chaos. They were all competing with each other, which drove prices through the roof in Asia, and then they'd all come home and flood the market, crashing the prices in Europe. Nobody was making any money. This free-for-all was a disaster. The Dutch government, led by a sharp statesman named Johan van Oldenbarnevelt, realized they were their own worst enemy. They had to stop fighting each other and start fighting their actual rivals, like Portugal and Spain. And their solution was, well, it was something the world had never seen before. So on March 20th, 1602, the government stepped in and forced all these little competing companies to merge into one single massive entity, the United East India Company, the VOC. And its mission was simple and brutally clear: dominate the entire Asian spice trade, period. But here's the part that is just mind-blowing. Look at the powers the government gave this company in its charter. It wasn't just a monopoly on trade. The VOC could literally wage war, build its own fortresses, negotiate treaties like it was a country, print its own money, and even establish colonies. This wasn't just a business. It was a corporation with the power of a state. Its corporate structure was also a game changer. For the first time ever, this was a joint stock company where anyone, not just the super rich, could buy a share and own a piece of the venture. This is basically the grandfather of the modern stock market. The money was raised through 6 regional offices, all managed by a central board of 17 directors, who then had a powerful governor-general in Asia running the whole show on the ground.
All right, so you've got this incredible corporate design, a war chest of cash, and the powers of a small country. Now let's see what they did with it. The VOC was about to unleash a period of growth so explosive, it would build a global empire and leave every other rival in the dust. And the results were just insane. By 1669, the VOC was, without a doubt, the richest private company on Earth. It had a fleet of over 150 merchant ships, 40 warships, which was basically its own private navy, and get this, 50,000 employees. For a private company in the 1600s, that number is just staggering. And if you put it side by side with its biggest competitor, the English East India Company, it's not even close. Over its lifetime, the VOC sent nearly twice as many ships to Asia. It moved 5 times the amount of goods. For much of the 17th century, the VOC wasn't just in the game, it was the game. So what was the secret sauce? How did they fund all this? Well, a governor-general named Jan Pieterszoon Coen came up with a brilliant strategy. Instead of just hauling European money all the way to Asia to buy spices, the VOC created a self-funding loop within Asia. They'd use silver from Japan to buy silk and porcelain in China, trade that for textiles in India, and then trade those for the super valuable spices. It was a money-making machine that powered the entire global operation. But, and this is a really important but, all of this profit, all of this success came at an absolutely horrific price.
The VOC's monopoly wasn't just built on clever business deals, it was built on violence, deliberate, systematic, and brutal violence.
You don't have to take my word for it. This is a quote from Coen himself, writing back to his bosses in Amsterdam. He says, "We cannot carry on trade without war, nor war without trade." He is telling them straight up that their business model requires violence. Profit and force were two sides of the same coin for the VOC. And this philosophy led to some of the darkest chapters of the era. To get a complete monopoly on nutmeg, the VOC went to the Banda Islands, the only place it grew, and massacred, starved, or enslaved nearly the entire population. They executed English rivals to send a message. They were deeply involved in the slave trade. And in 1740, their troops helped slaughter thousands of Chinese residents in their own headquarters. This wasn't an accident. This was corporate policy. Well, as you might imagine, an empire built on that foundation couldn't last forever. As the 18th century rolled on, a mix of internal rot and intense external pressure began to crack the whole thing wide open, leading to a total collapse. The fall happened slowly, and then all at once. The English East India Company got its act together and started putting serious pressure on profits. A key military loss in India showed the VOC wasn't invincible anymore. But the real knockout punch came in the 1780s when a war with Britain destroyed half their fleet. By the end, it was completely hollowed out by corruption and drowning in debt. In 1799, the Dutch government finally pulled the plug. So, what is the legacy of the VOC? Well, it's profoundly complicated. On one hand, you have all these groundbreaking business ideas we still use today. The first multinational corporation, the first company to sell stock to the public, the concept of limited liability. But on the other hand, you have colonialism, slavery, and monopolies enforced with mass murder. It was an engine of both innovation and exploitation. And that leaves us with a really big question for our own time. The VOC wrote the playbook for a global corporation that acts with the power of a nation. So now, 400 years later, you have to look around and ask yourself, how much has that fundamental relationship between global companies, immense power, and ethical responsibility truly changed?